What's up, y'all? Your boy Duck back with another reaction. Y'all ready for some SSG animations? About to watch 3 disturbing true urban explorer horror stories animated. It's been so long since I watched SSG animations. Any animated horror stories. Let's get it.
Urban
3:30 a.m.
explorations on YouTube have always been something that generated a conflict inside me. On the one hand, I love them. There is nothing more exciting than watching other people enter abandoned places. During the minutes that the video lasts, you bond with that person. You explore with them without leaving your house. You feel the fear they feel, and you share that with so many people. On the other hand, sometimes they keep secrets from you. Many YouTubers make fake videos with planted scares and people who secretly work with them. When I was young, I believed all the videos I saw and promised that when I grew up I would make videos like them. After I turned 19, I took up this dream again, but I promised that my content would be 100% real. I would never lie to my audience, and I would always make them feel the way they made me feel. What I didn't know was that this dream would be short-lived. You see, watching videos from the comfort of your home is not the same as being there live.
Yeah,
sometimes you may encounter scary people or accidents may happen. But other times, things go beyond your imagination. Things beyond your imagination will happen. Things that no person should have to live through. Sometimes you encounter the unexplainable. And that happened to me that night. It all started when my best friend and I began our first urban explorations. We checked out an abandoned hospital near our town. The government had started building it in the middle of the elections, but when they finished, no one took it over. We saw the place from top to bottom. There was a lot of graffiti and the place looked badly vandalized. Instead of scaring us, this left us somewhat reassured. How dangerous can it be in a place where many people come in and have time to paint these walls? We explored the whole place, filming everything we could, until one place caught our attention. The hospital had a door that looked reinforced. The door was locked, and although we tried with all our might to get in, it was impossible. It was obvious that other people had tried, as it was full of marks. I noticed a very strong smell coming from under the door. It was very difficult to be near that place, but my curiosity was through the roof. It was at that moment that a phenomenal idea occurred to me. That place was right up against the window. What if we turned the place upside down and entered from the outside? Quickly, my friend and I left the hospital and looked for the window. The place was high up, but my best friend helped me climb into all the windows. We went from window to window until we found the right one. I recognized it through the reinforced door. Once I looked out, I pointed the camera light to see what was inside. I wished I hadn't. The room was almost empty, except for one thing. In the center of the room was a chair. Someone was sitting in that chair, covered by a sheet full of blood. What I was looking at was a corpse. I had never seen a corpse before. I didn't know how to react. I panicked and told my friend to put me down. We both ran away from that place. My friend didn't understand what was happening, but he was as scared as I was. When we got far enough away, I told him everything I saw. He laughed a little at me. He thought he had seen a live person, but he also admitted that he would not like to go back to that place. He wanted to be brave and laugh, but he was as scared as I was. After that, we went back to our homes, promising to upload the video the next day before we told the police. We could get in trouble for being there, not to mention they might take our camera. From the rotten smell, the body looked like it had been there for a long time. Waiting another day wouldn't change much. I went to sleep like any other night. Little did I know that I was in for the worst night of my life. I was sleeping peacefully in my bed when suddenly I opened my eyes. As my eyes adjusted to the darkness, I remember feeling very cold. I was really confused. How could it be so cold in the summer? Besides, I never wake up in the early morning. I always considered myself a very heavy sleeper. When my eyes finished settling, I realized that there was something different in my room. When I realized what it was, I woke up completely and gave a dry scream of terror. The chair from the abandoned hospital was in front of me. The corpse was still in the chair, the sheet was covering it, but I could see how it was stained with blood. I pinched myself to see if I was dreaming, but I felt pain. That wasn't a dream. I knew it wasn't a dream. I tried to turn on the nightlight, but it didn't work. I got out of bed in desperation and went to my bedroom door, but it was completely locked. The bedroom light didn't work either. Suddenly, I heard a noise behind me. It was the sound of wood creeping. I turned around quickly and the noise was coming from the chair. The chair was turning on its own. The chair went from facing my bed to slowly turning in my direction. I started banging on the door in desperation. I was screaming at my parents, screaming as loud as I could, but on the other side I heard absolutely nothing. It was impossible that they were not listening to me. I heard a noise again, and when I turned around, the chair was crawling towards me. It was crawling slowly, but it was making a lot of noise. Behind the sheet, the corpse was moving. I saw agitated breathing with the mouth under the sheet. It was as if someone was suffocating behind the sheet. I was so scared that I couldn't move. I could only keep screaming in the hope that someone would hear me. When the chair came to my side, I had one last survival impulse and ran around it to head towards my window. I tried to open my window, but it wouldn't budge. It was stuck. I grabbed my vase and smashed it against the glass, but it didn't break either. It was as if the glass was suddenly reinforced. The cold became more and more intolerable. My room was practically uninhabitable from the cold. When I instinctively turned around, my eyes widened in surprise. The chair was pointing at me, but this time it was empty. There was no one sitting in it. The person with the sheet on top was gone. I couldn't believe it. It was the corpse that was in the chair. Now he was standing up, still covered with a sheet. He was choking me. I tried to free myself with all my strength, but I couldn't move. The force of whatever was holding me was too much. It was squeezing my neck so violently that I thought I would die, but not from suffocation. It would break my neck. As I was being hanged, I saw the shape of the head behind the sheet. It was filling with blood, squeezing harder and harder. And from one moment to the next, it was over. My parents opened the door to my room in confusion, and I fell to the floor. The chair was no longer in my room. I coughed nervously, trying to catch my breath. My parents didn't understand anything that was happening. When we went to the dining room, I decided to tell my parents everything. At first, I thought they wouldn't believe me, but they saw more than enough. My neck marks were very clear, and when they opened the door, I fell off the floor in a completely unnatural way. It was as if someone who was choking me had left. After a few hours, I returned to my room. The temperature had returned to normal, but I was not going to sleep. The reason I went into my room was to get a jacket. My father was going to take me to the police station. Once we arrived, I told the cops what I saw at the hospital. Obviously, I didn't tell them what happened at my house. I was not in trouble, but they made me explain specifically where I saw the body. After finding it, they opened a search to find the criminals. Shortly thereafter, they identified the victim and notified the family. The victim was a father who had been missing for several days. The family thought he had been in a traffic accident or something, and they were extremely worried. This news devastated them, but they expected to receive similar news. I never received another visit from this man. Today, I am trying to figure out what happened, and the only thing I can think of is that this man showed up in my room. He knew I had seen him, and he was demanding that I tell the police. Even after he was dead, he needed his family to know. He could not allow me to spend another night with his family without knowing what had happened to him. This experience discouraged me from continuing to do urban explorations, but after a while, I took them up again. Since that day, I consider that urban exploration should be taken much more seriously than I used to. I don't upload videos to YouTube anymore. I dedicate myself to enjoying this intimate experience with my friends. Also, if I find something again, I would not want it to be on tape. I feel it would be disrespectful to whatever I saw.
Interesting. Interesting story.
I've always wanted to be a famous urban explorer on YouTube. I'll be completely honest. I'm not one of those passionate people who do it for fun and upload it to YouTube to share what they love. No. My goal is to achieve fame, have millions of followers, and make a living out of it. The adrenaline of entering forbidden places and recording my experiences is just a means to get massive views. Today I can tell you that I am no longer interested in fame. I don't have social networks anymore.
I was like, yeah, that's not a good goal,
people to know about me. Exposure can bring wonderful things like fame and money, but one day I realized that it can also bring terrible things. And that's what this story is about. It all started when I tried to do one of my first urban explorations. I was trying to do other explorations in places that I had found until I realized that none of that worked. I didn't have to generate views. I had to go to the places where the views were already there. I had heard a lot about Paul Revere Elementary School. According to several YouTubers, it was a place where unexplainable things happened. Doors that closed by themselves, voices in the classrooms, and shadows that shouldn't be where they were. The school was closed decades ago due to a mysterious fire that caused the death of several students and teachers. Since then, stories about apparitions and paranormal phenomena had not stopped circulating. This was my best chance. That school was very close to where I lived. I decided this would be my moment to stand out, capture something incredibly scary, and go viral. My plan was to record everything and edit it into a spectacular video that would catapult me to fame.
And it looks like he's doing this
I
solo.
put on my backpack with a flashlight, spare batteries, water, a first aid kit, and my camera. I also carried a knife, more to feel safe than to actually use it. I was ready for anything. I didn't really believe in the paranormal, and I knew nothing would happen to me. But I could run into a human. I had to be careful about that. I arrived at the school just after sunset. The building was in ruins, with broken windows and graffiti everywhere. The main entrance was open, so I stepped into the darkness. The air was cold and damp. I understood why this place generated so many views. There was a very heavy vibe here that kept making me uncomfortable. I turned on my flashlight and started filming. At first, everything was quiet. I walked through the rubble-strewn hallways, observing the empty classrooms and abandoned furniture. The stillness of the place was unsettling, but after a while I started to get used to it. The atmosphere was fine, but I knew that if I wanted to make my video go viral, I had to do something. I started talking to the camera, describing the place. I was very comfortable with how loud my voice sounded. It was so quiet you could hear a pin drop. If there were any homeless people sleeping here, it would surely hear me. I wasn't so sure about making fake scares anymore, and once I heard my own voice and the echo it made throughout the place, I became suggestible and started to get uncomfortable. Suddenly, I heard a strange noise, as if something was moving in the distance. I thought maybe it was an animal, but the sound made me even more nervous. I decided to keep exploring, but I started to feel a strange sensation of being watched. Just in case, I clutched the handle of the knife in my pocket. I was starting to calm down, but I heard that noise again. Paranoia began to grow inside of me. There was something else here, and I didn't want to risk my life depending on whether it was just an animal. The noise got louder, and my instinct told me it was time to leave. I tried to find my way out, but I realized that I'd lost my way.
Ow.
At first, I was very confident that I would remember the way out. But then I realized that the corridors all looked the same, and the darkness made everything even more confusing. Every crossroads made me feel more trapped. I was getting more and more desperate. I heard footsteps all around me. They felt like they were coming from everywhere. I panicked and picked up my pace. I needed to find a way out, but every corner I turned to seemed to take me deeper into the school. The flashlight began to flicker, and I cursed under my breath.
This
That
is
was all that was left to do, to be left in the dark. Finally, I found a bathroom and decided to hide in there and calm down and think about my next move. As I entered, my flashlight illuminated a mannequin standing in the middle of the room. I was startled, but realized right away that it wasn't a real human. Normally, I would have gotten the scare of my life, but after watching other YouTubers, I knew that mannequin was there. Someone had put it there. I approached it slowly, my breathing getting heavier with each step. I wanted to check if someone had tampered with it recently. The tension in the air was palpable, and every shadow on the walls seemed to move as I advanced. When I reached the mannequin, I realized there was no one else in the room, but the fear didn't go away. I checked it, and it was quite dusty. That meant that no one had touched it in a while. I took a deep breath and tried to calm down. If I wanted to leave without running into anyone, I should be as calm as I could be. I locked myself in a cubicle and watched a YouTube video without sound where they also searched the school and watched as other people encountered the dummy. I did this to see which way they were going to find the exit, and sure enough, I figured out how to find it. Before leaving the cubicle, the worst moment of the night began. I looked ahead and realized that there were 2 feet behind the door.
Oh.
Someone was with me. That person wasn't checking the cubicles. He was looking at the mannequin. I didn't know anything about him, but some things were immediately clear to me. He was completely silent and with his flashlight off. He wasn't another YouTuber, and he didn't want to be seen. The boots were shiny and covered by a tunic. I had a hard time believing he was homeless. The person stood there for a while, kind of sniffing around the place. After a few seconds, he simply walked away. I took a deep breath and took a few more seconds to leave. I had to be sure that this person was far away from me. I looked down at the cubicle and there was no one there. That person had already gone. I was about to come out of my hiding place when I heard a very strange noise near me. It was a breathing, but agitated. Ah! I ran as fast as I could to the exit, but when I got there, things got even worse. Standing on the stairs to the exit, I saw 3 figures blocking my way. They were masked and dressed in dark robes, just like the man in the bathroom. My heart stopped for an instant, and an icy chill ran down my back. These people were no mere vandals. They planned to take me. Fear came over me, and I started to run in the opposite direction. The footsteps behind me grew louder. They were following me. I reached an open classroom and hid behind a desk, trying to control my breathing. The men passed the classroom without entering. I cowered as much as I could, hoping they wouldn't find me. After a few seconds, I came out of my hiding place carefully. I had to get away from this place. But this was also a trap. Before I could react, I was grabbed and taken to another room, where there were more people waiting. I felt strong hands holding me, and despair came over me completely. They pinned me to the floor, and one of them pulled out a knife. It was my knife, which I didn't even remember because I was filled with so much fear. The terrifying man began to run it across my bare chest and began to cut me. I screamed in pain. I could feel my attacker drawing something on my chest with my own knife. The knife cut my skin slowly, and the pain was unbearable. I could feel the hot blood running down my chest. Every second felt like an eternity. The last thing I heard before I passed out was the voice of the one who was cutting me.
Hey, Adam. It's all over now.
I woke up in the doorway of my house. I had all my belongings except my camera. I lay on the floor, crying. Something terrible had happened. My ID, it was out of date. I had recently moved and the address I lived at was different. How did they know I lived here? I kept thinking about this for the next few days. The only explanation was that someone close to me had given them the information. That meant that I didn't come across these people by chance. Many people in my personal circle knew I was going to do this exploration. This was a trap from the beginning. Since that day, everything scares me. I feel I can't trust any.
Alright, sorry about that.
Since that day, everything scares me. I feel I can't trust anyone, neither my friends nor my family. Every time I go out on the street, I feel like people are watching me.
Everybody's seeing it.
Sometimes I think it's just paranoia. But other times, I'm sure someone is there. watching me. Since that day, I've stopped making videos. I don't want to be famous anymore. I don't want anyone to know about me. These marks on my chest are not a one-time thing. I was chosen for something, and I feel that sooner or later, they will come back for me. They know where I live.
I'll let you move.
It's a matter of time. It could be hours.
Burn it down.
It could be in the next few days.
Stop being a little
Or
bitch.
it could even be years. I know they will come back. I just know it.
The man got scared. And
This story is based at Paul Revere Elementary School. Since it was abandoned, this school has witnessed countless unexplained events, but also it is the site of many rituals, from witchcraft to devil worship. Today, YouTubers from all over the world come to this place to search for content for their channels, but all are advised not to do so, as they may encounter people much more than hostile.
You know, I was thinking about it. I was like, you know, Chris is a part of that, the mannequin part. When I saw the mannequin, I was like, yo, that's from Chris. Chris visited that place. Freaking solo black adventurer. It's going out, doing stuff by himself. I mean, he has weapons on him, but still, by yourself, bro, you crazy?
I never really liked the idea of exploring obscure places, but since Dom, one of my best friends, made it big on YouTube, I ended up getting attached to the idea of doing urban explorations just to accompany him. Obviously, I won't tell you my friend's real name or his YouTube channel, since I'm not on the best terms with him nowadays.
Oh.
Let's just say his name is Dom, known on YouTube as Exploring with Dom. Those of you who know about urban explorations will know how to find the real channel. Dom was a famous urban explorer. His charisma attracted a huge following, and when he asked me to accompany him to an apparently abandoned sewer, I reluctantly agreed. In addition to the two of us, our friend Leo joined the expedition. We met one cool, dark night near the entrance to the culvert. Dom, as always, was carrying his high-definition camera and lighting equipment. Leo and I were equipped with flashlights and backpacks with basic supplies. Before we went in, Dom did an introduction for his channel, talking about the urban legends surrounding the sewer. Rumor had it that satanic rituals had been performed there, and some people claim to have even seen strange figures lurking around. We entered the sewer cautiously, the light from our flashlights bouncing off the damp, musty walls. As we progressed, the air grew heavier, and the smell of dampness and decay became more and more intense. Every step we took could be heard very loud indeed. If there was someone inside that sewer, they were surely listening to us. After a few minutes of walking, we came to a huge subway chamber. The walls were covered with strange symbols, and there were remnants of candles and other artifacts scattered on the floor. Leo muttered something about how eerie the place was, and I couldn't help but feel a shiver run down my spine. I was no longer scared of monsters, but we were likely to cross paths with a human. Unlike us, Dom was actually happy. He narrated every detail with enthusiasm for his audience. Everything was going great. Suddenly, we saw something we weren't supposed to see. As we were scanning the camera, something in a corner caught our attention. It was a human figure, motionless and dressed in a dark robe. We approached cautiously. Perhaps it was a mannequin or something strange. We took steps towards the figure, confused, not knowing if it was a missing person or some statue. And suddenly, the figure came to life. It was no mannequin. It was a woman, and she had a pair of scissors in her hand. Dom turned off his camera at that precise moment, and chaos erupted. The woman rushed towards us, and we ran as fast as we could. She didn't seem interested in Dom. She was coming after us. When she finished chasing us, we stood against the wall, frightened, and all of a sudden, she just stopped abruptly, and the girl started laughing. First, she congratulated Dom and me, saying that we had reacted just as she had expected. I was flabbergasted.
My good.
It turns out that it had all been planned by Dom to get a genuine reaction from Leo and me, unbeknownst to us.
Oh, I see why you're not
This
on
was
good
to be
terms.
content for his YouTube channel.
Holy shit.
Despite the woman's explanation, the tension in the air didn't completely dissipate. I was furious. I'm proud that he's doing well, but to use his friends like that. Anyway, I tried to take it as a joke and move on. I looked at Dom, who was still talking to the woman, not noticing the shiver that ran through the place. Leo and I looked at each other. We were both equally annoyed, but we let it stay the same. This is going to be epic in the video. Admittedly, Leo and I were glad it was just a joke anyways. We were really scared. We thought we were going to die. We were scared to death, and we weren't happy with Dom playing on our fears like that. However, we started to pack up our things to leave the sewer. I was distracted gathering my things and looking around the place, when suddenly a piercing scream echoed from down the hall. It was Leo. How had he gotten away so fast? He was just with us seconds before. We ran towards where the sound was coming from. It seemed to be getting farther and farther away, as if it was moving. We were all really scared. This time, I wouldn't put up with the whole thing being a sick joke, but Dom looked seriously scared. When Leo finally stood still, we managed to find him. Leo was not alone. A white, scrawny figure over 6 feet tall sat spider-like on Leo, devouring him as he agonized. The image was terrifying. The monster was a pale abomination with elongated limbs and empty eyes that emanated an indescribable malevolence. Each passing second felt like an eternity. Leo's blood mixed with the dirty water on the floor, creating a dark puddle that slowly spread. The sound of flesh tearing and Leo's choked moans rang throughout the place. I tried to move, to do something, but my legs were unresponsive. Fear had completely paralyzed me. The being raised its head and saw us. Its gaze froze us for a second, but then we reacted and started running desperately. Dom and I were running at full speed, listening to the horrible sounds of Leo being devoured. The woman, dressed as a priest who was still with us, tried to run away too. The being caught up with her first. At that point, we managed to get ahead of it, but we turned and saw it tear the woman apart with its teeth. She had no chance. The beast grabbed her by the neck and tore a piece out of her. She immediately fell down bleeding to death. And a few seconds later, the beast was coming after us again. We ran as fast as we could. We were close to the exit, but this being, whatever it was just too fast. I felt it was going to catch up with us at any moment. And if it did, we would have to fight. I was ready to stop with my friend and try to save the rest, but my friend had other plans. He just pushed me back to gain the advantage and used those seconds to escape.
Shit.
I'm sorry.
Yo.
As soon as I fell, I
This dude's a
desperately
piece
went
of
to a
shit.
room in the sewers.
Oh, shit.
My first and united idea was to hide somewhere in that place. And in a matter of seconds, the being was with me. And it was looking for me. Every step I took echoed in the narrow corridors of the sewer. I was breathing heavily. I felt that if I breathed hard enough, the monster would come for me. The terror of being caught was unbearable. And
Man's
every
playing
second in the tunnels
Alien
felt like
Isolation
I
right
was
now.
risking my life. I made an effort to just breathe and not make any unnecessary noise. It seemed easier than you might think, but at that moment, it really wasn't. At that moment, I could only think of a way out. At that moment, all I could think about was that I wanted to cry. I was so scared, and I didn't want to feel it anymore. I held on as long as I could, and the monster passed me by, looking for me without success. I waited a few minutes until I was sure it had moved away. Then I came out of hiding and ran towards the exit. The road seemed endless, but I finally saw the light at the end of the tunnel. Just as I was about to leave, the monster appeared again, chasing me with terrifying speed. Panic clouded my mind, and each step felt heavier than the last. I could feel the monster's breath on the back of my neck, its oppressive presence pushing me to the brink of madness. The exit was so close, but every second seemed to drag on, turning the race into endless torment. My muscles burned, and the fear of failing to escape was an unbearable weight. I made it out of the manhole for a few seconds, the monster almost catching up with me. I closed the heavy manhole cover behind me and heard its furious pounding from the other side. My heart was pounding, but I was safe. I looked around and saw Dom, who had managed to escape as well. We stood looking at each other for a moment.
Yo.
He was furious. Without saying a word, I lunged at Dom and started hitting him. He tried to defend himself, but I quickly realized that he didn't expect to be fighting. Hell, he didn't even expect to see me again. Every hit I landed felt cathartic. The man I considered my best friend was going to let me die, and I would never forgive him for that. He used to fight better than me, but I was the one who was furious, so I took the reins of the fight and left him on the ground, wounded. He was looking at me with a face of absolute hatred, but to be honest, I couldn't care less. Never again. From that night on, Dom and I never spoke of the event. Neither he nor I reported the disappearances of Leo and the woman. We both knew no one would believe us, and the truth was too terrifying for it to become normal, and the story to attract more people. We preferred not to say anything. Who knows? Maybe if we talked about it more, we would cause more deaths of people who just wanted to come in because we told them it would increase the views on a YouTube video. I have no idea what it is that we found.
Lucky he didn't die right there.
It's probably better not to know. Humans are away from the sewers for a reason. And who knows what things live there, waiting for a completely deluded person to enter.
Dr. Connor lived there. Yo, Don would have died. If that was me, yo, he would have died right there. In that situation, he would. Oh, wow. That was... Okay. That was actually pretty good. It's been a while since I watched animated stories, so... Oh, man. Hope you guys enjoyed it alongside me. Yeah, that's it. Well, peace.
And if it did, we would have to fight. I was ready to stop with my friend and try to save the rest, but my friend had other plans. He just pushed me back to gain the advantage and used those seconds to escape.
Shit.
I'm sorry.
Yo.